Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Agentic CMO. I am Dave Lehman, President and COO here at Birdeye, and your host for the Agentic CMO podcast, where we talk to great industry leaders about the world of AI and how it's affecting their business, especially in the multi-location brand world. I am joined today by another exciting guest. I've got Dom Garrett. He is the SVP of Marketing and Communications at Diamond Residential Mortgage Corporation. Dom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Would love to start with just sort of your background. I know you've been at Diamond Residential Mortgage Corporation for a little over 4 years, but you also have a great, interesting background in agency work, running your own podcasts and the rest. But would you mind setting the stage that way?
For sure. Yeah, I would love to. I cut my teeth in marketing, working on the social media side. Way back in the day, I used to be the voice on Twitter for Applebee's. So that was a long time ago, working for a company called BTC Revolutions. But that's sort of how I got my foot in the door. And then things kind of expanded out from that, bouncing back and forth between working for agencies, running my own consultancy shop, as you mentioned, like did some podcast work in there, a little bit of video marketing, kind of just a lot of the creative side, while really understanding how things work inside and outside of marketing departments. And then, it was about 4.5 years ago, I was actually working for an agency where Diamond was one of our clients, and the agency was going a different direction. I reached out to Diamond and wanted to know if maybe I could be their marketing consultant, and they were like, "Let's do you one better. How would you like to just come on full time?" And so, haven't looked back from there. It's been an interesting 4.5 years in the mortgage industry. Hasn't necessarily been the sunshiniest, but it's a great company and really excited to continue pushing things forward. So.
Well, and when the market, when it's easy, then we all look brilliant. It's hard to stand out when the overall tides are a little harder. But tell us again a little bit about the business as well and what you're responsible for there, Dom, and that side of things.
For sure, yeah. So I mean, Diamond has been around since 2009. It was founded. Our president, a CEO, Paul Diamond, is an industry vet, worked at a lot of different shops along the way. We're a small independent mortgage banker, non-depository. And we really, our motto, our ethos is together we get it done. We find ourselves really operating inside of like the more complex mortgage situations. I mean, plenty of conventional, plenty of, FHA, USDA, VA, that kind of stuff. We have all three of our tickets. So, we're able to work with Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie, but we have a very robust non-QM side of the business, where, we're doing things for I-10 borrowers, for folks that are self-employed, people that need down payment assistance. Internally, we have a lot of this feeling of no loan left behind. If legal is listening, that's not a promise, right? We don't say that we do every single loan, but our team, everybody is really here to roll up our sleeves and live inside of that place where like we understand that life is complex for folks, and we find ourselves becoming a home for people that maybe have been turned down by some of the big box lenders, or they're in a smaller town somewhere in rural Illinois, and the banks and the credit unions don't want to do a renovation loan for them, or they don't know somebody that can do a construction loan for them. And we like to say that we have a loan for that. We have a lot of opportunities to help a lot of people. So that's really where we find ourselves. And, I think it's helped us carving out different niches over the course of the last 4.5 years where, a lot of folks are consolidating or, hanging up the shop and moving on to a different industry. We've been able to find a place in the middle of all of it.
And through all that, obviously, when you have a particular product that's not for everybody, but is for a lot of people, and maybe not the big budgets of the big box guys and the rest.
Mm-hmm.
These opportunities that come up of how do people find you, maybe on some new channels. Google obviously is traditionally there, and your other ad spends and the rest. But there's a lot that's going on right now with LLMs, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, the other side of Google of it. Like, how are you guys thinking about that? How is the customer finding you guys in this new world?
Yeah. So I mean, Google is still king, right? I was looking at all of our analytics, and I mean, that still is the powerhouse that's there. But I mean, we saw, I think I'm looking here, it's like about 150, a little bit more than that percent growth of just the AI traffic channel that we have seen just Q1 to Q2.
Wow.
I think that this is a little bit of it is anecdotal, but when you have certain situations like this, if somebody has, a bankruptcy, if they're not sure what to do, people are a little hesitant to reach out to a stranger and just pour their life out. But, people are a lot more likely to talk to like an LLM about it. Hey, I have this is what happened. What should I do? And so, it's giving people a little bit more information. No, people don't know the jargon of the mortgage industry. People might not understand exactly what an I-10 loan is, or, like understand specific, investor type loans if they want, something for a duplex. But the LLM gives them a little bit of education. And then I think we find people that are then putting that maybe into something like Google, that are looking for lenders that can do that type of a product inside of their area. And then, we are able to be found from there. And, we're working a lot to try to get more citations directly inside of those LLMs, using tools like Birdeye to be able to help us understand that. But that's where I'm seeing quite a bit of a shift, in that people are starting their conversations in that place. They might end up on Google to search for something because it feels more comfortable for them, but they're coming here with a lot more education and understanding things better than they may have before.
And is that the type of thing, like obviously everyone's trying to win at the local level, and hey, I live in a particular region, I'm trying, in a state, trying to get these loans. But there's, like you said, the overall educational information. Are you guys trying to put out information both at that local level and the educational side? And have you tried things like Reddit? I know like those certain sites have more influence based on the type of searches that people are doing, and the informational ones are, again, different than the local ones.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's definitely a multi-pronged approach. We're really interesting in how we run our business, in that, we have 15 or so physical branches that we have around. But, the way that we consider it is like each one of our loan officers, is essentially their own branch. And so on the local level, we actually have Google My Business profiles for every single one of them, right? We don't just try to put everybody underneath the brand. And that's a huge place for us to be able to help and put out a lot of local content. The same thing when it comes to social media. We as a marketing department like to think of ourselves like an internal marketing agency. And so we're doing our best to be able to serve our clients who are our loan officers and make sure that they're winning on that local level, because we're a very relational company. We understand that the onlyness that we have are the people, are our loan officers. There's certain things that only they are going to be able to do. Right. And, we're just trying to set the table so that people understand, this is who they are, help them be found on those levels. Because, we have some folks in like Denver and in Chicago, but then we also have folks in Valparaiso, Indiana, in Fort Wayne, in Springfield, Illinois, in Hannibal, Missouri. And, it operates a little bit different. People like to know that there's somebody that's like in their neighborhood, right? That they live here, that they work here. And so it's an interesting balance of trying to do that. But we found that like Google My Business has been pretty successful, and, being able to like manage that at scale has been really good for our organization. Putting out content for that, and then just understanding, listening to insights of what people are searching, especially on a local level through these LLMs, and use that to help, drive what content is working in certain places.
Yeah. People are saying how critical the trust signals are, even more so on these LLMs. Obviously, trust is a big thing, as you're saying. It's a very relationship business, and people want to see that that those trust signals are there. But these LLMs are picking up on those reviews, social comments as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And we understand that is, like I said, it's what makes us special. If somebody is very attuned to rate and rate alone, and that's when they're looking at, we might not always be able to win that business. But we found that the niche is there for the people aspect of it, and we just do our best to try to highlight that and bring it to the surface, at scale. Because we're a small marketing team. So it's not like we have, an account manager for every single branch.
Right.
We're trying to do it for 40, 50, 60 people at a time. It's helpful to have tools that can, break that down for us.
Well, let's dive into that now. Because like you said, most multi-location brands, whether it's in mortgage or healthcare or, property management, like they don't have huge teams. So, for you trying to be that internal agency for your brokers, like how do you guys scale? Like how are you guys using AI internally to make sure you can act like a big team and get everybody what they need?
Yeah. For myself personally, I'm using Claude every single day. I've got it open.
Okay.
It's like it's the first thing that I do when I open up my laptop. It's the last thing that I do before I shut it every single day. It's not my term. I heard somebody else describe it this way, but it's like I create it like it's my own operating system. And so, having it.
What kind of thing? Yeah. What are you doing with it? I like that people want to everyone's saying, oh, I'm testing Claude. I'm playing with it. But like, what do you got it doing for you?
For sure. Every single call that I have, everybody has these note takers that are there, and might not go back and review it all. But like, I'm looking through every single one of the transcripts, all the transcripts from our calls with our loan officers, with our leadership, with our internal marketing team. All of that is funneling into the same project. It's connecting into my Outlook. It's connecting into Asana, which we use for task management. And so, it's scraping all of that to make sure that, it's essentially operating like an assistant that is like, hey, these are the tasks that you have to do, X, Y, and Z. It's blocking off time in my calendar that I've told it specifically to block off so I can, make sure that I'm accomplishing those tasks and following up with our team to make sure that they're doing those things. That alone has been absolutely huge and has saved me.
So you don't have an agent working for you. You're working for an agent. It sounds like it tells you what to do, when to do it. And
it's like, please tell me. It's like, it hears me promise something on a call. It's like, hey, Dom, you have to follow up with this. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yep. I'm the one that said it. And then, it obviously helps, and there's ways to be able to do it for like content creation. Right. Especially internally, there's a lot of information that we get, and a lot of it is very dense. It's very, filled with jargon. Like, we just launched a new national DPA program, so down payment assistance. And the information that you get from this, it's, filled with, FICO this and LTV that, and you could give it to a loan officer, but they're super busy and they don't want to have to read through all of it. So I can take all of this, truncate it down, create a one sheet that we could distribute internally that has some talking points. And, it's just providing another tool to our loan officers for them to be able to use it. And, it's not perfect. It requires us to be able to go through and to look and to edit before we're sending things out, especially customer focusing things. But, it provides just a lot of that, that initial work that gets done. And then, from a side of outside of just what we're using with Claude, every single tool, we're not bringing on new marketing tools, and we're not investing in marketing tools that don't have an AI layer that is a part of it. And, it's not just enough to have an AI layer, but it's like, how can this agent talk to this agent? How can the data that's flowing from one place to another in and out of our CRM? We just went through a massive CRM switch. And a lot of it is because, what we needed these tools that were a part of that product to be able to help us understand the data and act on it, provide our loan officers with tools so that, again, they could just focus on talking to customers and not like combing through their database or understanding, what signal means what, that we could surface these reports and give them, bullet points of what they need to know. So, I mean, it's wild. I remember testing stuff with ChatGPT like 2 years ago in our corporate office, and we were like joking around about how we could write a Grateful Dead style song about something that our CEO just recently talked about. And now I'm like, oh, I feel like a marketing engineer, and I'm writing code and I'm doing all of this stuff and creating all of these widgets and calculators and tools. It's like it's 100% of my job now.
It sounds like you get pretty hands-on with this stuff. I'm like, how do you decide when to use an off-the-shelf or obviously a product better have AI these days and be open, like you said, but when do you choose to use a tool like that versus going to one of the, foundational models yourself and spending the time there?
Yeah, I mean, buy versus build, right? It's something that
we're back to that, I guess, is simply, but yeah.
I mean, it kind of is, and it's interesting. It was one of the conversations that we had when we thought about changing our upgrading our CRM. It's like, do we go with something like a HubSpot or Salesforce and try to make it custom, or do we end up getting something that is a little bit more tailored to our industry? When it comes to like AI, I almost always start myself. Where
Okay.
Claude and ChatGPT, all of it is so easy for me to be able to essentially like build an MVP where, I use it as a thought partner. I guess really what it is a thought partner off the jump, where I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm like, I ask Claude, like, do you have any skills? Is there anything that anybody else has already been able to build with this? And I use it as research. And then I try to work something up for myself. I see if it works. I see how much it can scale. I see what the token usage is going to be like.
My favorite to add to the prompt is like, and ask me questions that you don't know. Like stop making things up, but you have to like explicitly say that I am here to answer questions before you start processing for a long amount of time and burning through a lot of tokens with missing information.
Yeah, right. Like I'm on Fable. I need to also use this for other stuff later. Like let's calm it down a little bit. But it is a lot of that where I'm like using it as an exercise. I'm like thinking about things. I find myself like doing it like after work hours typically, where it's like, maybe I have like a glass of wine or I've got a beer and I'm sort of sitting down. I'm like, all right, let's just try to figure this out. Just like, I'm just, shooting the breeze with somebody else. And then, for me, it's always, I understand that any sort of a buying decision is going to take time, right? Like if it's a low thing, yes, there's certain budgets that we can work within that it doesn't take a long process. I have a call with our CEO. It's like, yeah, go ahead, green light. But like a lot of this stuff that has overall business implications, which is interesting because it's like, it never feels like it just stays in marketing. It always feels like now it's just like, we're thinking about it from a holistic business perspective. And that's going to take a lot of stakeholders. We need to, bring the board into it. And, you're 3-4 weeks away from making a decision. So I try to build it myself first. I try to make sure that it is valuable and that it can drive value. Test it in one specific lane to see if it works, and then present that to leadership where it's like, hey, here's this. We can continue to try to build it. Here's roughly what it's going to take for us to actually scale this out. And here's the worries that we have versus here's something that is compliance vetted that somebody else has done that we can then, be able to tack on. And, you can get away with a lot without having to get a bunch of stakeholders that are 100% involved in making a giant buying decision. And it's pretty nice that way. It's such a,
but then eventually eventually, once you get that idea sort of solidified out there, again, when do you say, okay, that's good enough, or hey, I need to go to a partner to that pulls it all together?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, what it comes down to is time, where it's like, this is, this is what it would take for me to be able to continue to do this. And, we need to move on to something else. I've been, it's an interesting, sort of calculus that I have. I mean, I'm lucky in my role in that I have a really good open relationship with our CEO, and he understands where things are going. He might, and this is leadership anywhere, right? Like you can't know absolutely everything and get your arms around everything, or you have to trust the people that you're working with to be able to understand those things. And it's like, hey, let's have an honest conversation. This is what my day would look like. This is what my month would look like if we continue to just try to have all of this in house. And this is what this can unlock. And finding the right partners, finding the right tools to help you unlock that, so that you can move and scale a lot faster. Especially for our business, it's huge, because I don't think that there's a ton of IMBs that are our size that are able to do that. At least there haven't been historically. And so it allows for us to really carve a corner out for ourselves, right? We're not going to be Rocket, right? That's not a goal of ours, is to grow to be that large of a company. But there is a space for us in the market, and these tools allow for us to adapt rather than, not.
Great. Awesome. Well, Don, this is fantastic. It is clear to me in your responsibilities and how you're thinking about the world. You are an agentic CMO. I'm giving you that title today, and well earned. You get this stuff and have a lot of forward thinking ideas on this stuff. Advice for other people out there who are, getting their hands on it, either in your industry or just in general, marketers who are trying to figure out how to leverage this technology, leverage partners, lean into AI. What advice do you have for them?
I mean, just roll up your sleeves and give it a bit of a try. Like, play in the sandbox. It's there's a lot of things that are out there that you might not totally know that you can do, but you gotta give it a try. The other thing that I will say too is, like, don't pigeonhole yourself into your specific industry. I think one of the things that I was able to bring to this role is that I had a lot of experience working in different industries before I got to here. I mean, the customer journey is the customer journey. If you care about people and you want to see them, you want to see your clients succeed, you want them to have better lives, right? You put them at the center of what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're in mortgage, doesn't matter if you're in healthcare, doesn't matter if you're in, retail or, direct to consumer. There's a lot that you can learn outside of your industry to be able to shake things up. And yeah, just try to learn as much as you can, because, I heard somebody say that this is one of the largest knowledge unlocks that we've had, when it comes to business and what we can do. Just try to soak it up. You don't know what you don't know. So ask a lot of questions, keep trying. And yeah, I think you'll be surprised with the results.
Yeah, that's great. I think it is worth burning through a bunch of tokens early on to learn what's possible, and just get
100%.
get in there and figure it out and play with some of these tools. A new one that I found the other day that I loved, called Prompt Cowboy, where you give it like a bit of a prompt, and then it writes out the rest of the prompt based on what engine you're going to stick it in. Like, things like that are fun. You learn how these things think and act, and it just opens up what's possible as you're working through this stuff. But excellent.
100%. Yeah. One real quick thing, and this is just something I thought of the other day. Like, I don't know if anybody else has played around with any of like the filters that you have on like photos on Instagram, right? Where they have like their AI thing that Meta has. They show you what the prompt is of how they're changing the photo. Like, there's one that I love. It has like a 35 millimeter flash effect. I think it's really interesting. Okay. But like, it's not just hit a button and a filter pops up. it actually has like, this is the prompt that it's giving the AI to change it. Now,
Oh, interesting.
I'm not changing a bunch of images for my job, but it's like understanding that is made specifically to have the same type of effect at scale across the world for everybody that uses Instagram. The way that prompt is built means something. And maybe your prompt is different, that you're doing it for writing content or understanding, a data set, but like understand how that works. And if you get good at that and you understand your business and your people, like the prompts will follow. You'll figure out how to build all of that stuff, but like try to understand the building blocks a lot of different places, and I think it'll be really good for you.
Excellent. Well, Dom, thank you so much for joining me today. Great content, great conversation. And thank you everyone for joining us on another edition of the Agentic CMO. We will see you next time.